Welcome, everybody, to the Ray Shasho Show, brought to you by the Publicity Works Agency. Each week, Ray spotlights in-depth interviews with legendary and up-and-coming authors and music artists. Ray also features the movers and the shakers of the music and publishing industries and suggests important methods for getting the most out of your public relations and marketing needs. Please welcome music journalist, author, and entrepreneur, Ray Shasho.
I'm Ray Shasho, and welcome to the show where we spotlight legendary and up-and-coming music artists and authors, brought to you by the Publicity Works Agency. Call us today at 941-877-1552 or visit www.publicityworksagency.com. We shine only when we make you shine. Our very special guest today is musician, author, and music video director Kevin Godley. If you don't recognize the name, Kevin was a founding member of the groundbreaking UK band 10cc. Their single, I'm Not in Love, continues to be one of the best-selling records of all time. And, of course, The Things We Do for Love, another big hit for the band. As one half of Godley Creme, he went on to pioneer the notion of music video as an art form and was responsible for iconic clips by artists such as Herbie Hancock, The Police, Duran Duran, Lou Reed, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and then he continued to up his game in solo mode with U2, Frank Sinatra, Paul McCartney, The Beatles, and Blur, amongst others. Most recently, Kevin Godley thrives on reinventing himself, and SPACECAKE, his first book, takes you on an interactive tour of his life via pictures, music, film clips, and 27 chapters of abstract insight into how everything from the first hits to WholeWorldBand, his music video collaboration app, got made. It's dark in some of the corners, though, so make sure you bring your torch. It's my great pleasure to welcome today Kevin Godley to the Ray Shasho Show.
Well, thank you very much. That was a bit of a build-up you gave me there. I hope I live up to it for you.
Well, you deserve it.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you very much.
Now, where are you today? I know you're in Europe. Are you in Ireland?
I am in Ireland. I'm actually driving as we speak to what we call a beach to walk my dog because it's a lovely day here today. So, yeah, I'm in Ireland.
So what kind of dogs do you have?
4 legs, tails, teeth, usual kind of thing. Right.
Well, let's chat first about the new book. The new book is called SPACECAKE. That's the title of the book. So, what was your first authoring experience like?
It was extraordinary. I mean, getting from starting point to the end point took 4 years, but not consistently working for 4 years.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it was kind of strange because it's one of those projects where you can't see the edges. You can only see the bit you're working on, so you have no real sense of how this is going to pan out. But gradually, I kind of got to grips with the process of what writing is all about. I mean, the thing that appealed to me at the beginning, I was asked to do an interactive book which allowed people to listen and watch stuff, and that was the exciting part. But towards the end, it became that was sort of ingrained in the idea. The exciting thing for me was, can I write a book? Can I actually make people become engaged with the story? And that was the big challenge for me. I'm not really capable of commenting on whether I achieved that or not, but I think I kind of got close, maybe.
Yeah, I'm an author as well. I'm actually working on my third book, which is completed, called Saving Rock and Roll. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep the same title or not, but it features over 150 interviews that I've done. And,
wow.
I'm a little worried about the genre of rock music and, blues and jazz, and it's just not in the mainstream anymore. So that's why I've decided to, let everybody know where all the artists are. They're all okay. They're all, putting out music, and nothing's changed. It's just the industry has changed. But, now, were you critical about writing? You kept looking at it, re-editing, that kind of thing, or you just kind of let it flow?
I don't know. I kind of let it flow, essentially,
right.
because I think if you're writing a memoir about something, you have to be true to what's important to your memory, what you think is important.
Right.
And frankly, I couldn't afford to get an editor. So it was a very low-key affair. I mean, and I didn't want to have a ghostwriter or anybody. I just wanted to let it flow. It's pretty stream of consciousness, but once the consciousness had been streamed, I obviously went back through it and plucked a few things out and altered a few things and moved a few things around until it fitted what I consider to be a reasonable structure. So yeah, there is editing. The most painful part is punctuation. I found that unbelievably dull. At one point I was tempted to remove anything to do with punctuation whatsoever. But and there are inevitably going to be some errors in there, some spelling mistakes, God knows what else. But I think I've got the soul of what I'm about in there, which to me is the key of what this thing was for.
Yeah, I worked for a publishing company as well, and I know the problem with punctuation, especially commas. Do I put one there? Should I put one there?
Oh yeah, it's I'm doing far too many commas. Let's throw a colon instead. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, I applaud you for writing your own book and not getting a ghostwriter, because it's a very tedious, very difficult thing to do, but it's fulfilling after you're done writing it. It's like nothing else. To me, it's more than writing a song. Yeah,
it is. But I'll tell you one thing. I did find that once I'd finished and I was feeling thrilled with myself, I'd kind of leave it for a couple of weeks and then go back and have a look and think, oh God, that's really shit. I should redo that. But you know that feeling? Actually, why did I stop a sentence there? It could have carried on. Or why did I do this? Why did I do that? I suppose it's pretty much the same with any creative endeavor. I think you have to be self-critical all the way through the process, otherwise you're not going to get something that's as good as it can be.
Yeah, you always think, well, it sounded good at the time. What was I thinking, that kind of thing. But tell me a little bit about the book. What is it about? I didn't get a copy of it. Billy didn't send me a copy of it. I don't know if you still had time or not. But, what is it about? Is it pretty much your memoir and the history of your musical endeavors and that kind of thing?
It is. I suppose more than anything, it's about what I do rather than who I am.
Right.
It's about work, because I don't really think who I am is that exciting. So I have to start. I kind of started from a point that led me to anecdotes around what I do. Does that make sense?
I'm trying to get the gist of it. Explain a little further. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, for instance, it's written in an odd style. I wrote it as a screenplay. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Which kind of allowed me to take a step back and look on my life as a story as opposed to a documentary, which was kind of interesting. So it gave me a perspective. The second thing about it is I give myself an alter ego. I call myself KG when I'm talking, but I also call myself KGB, which is there essentially to say, stop, you're talking a lot of bollocks, move on. Mm-hmm. It's almost like having a brother, because I never had a real brother. So it's like a break, a set of breaks for when I start to drone on too much about too much technology that people don't understand or get boring. So I think those two aspects kept me grounded and gave me a good starting point. But as I said, it's about the stuff that I've done. And if there wasn't an interesting anecdote about the making of stuff, then I didn't tell that story. I moved on to something else. For instance, there's a good story about shooting the video for Bono and Frank Sinatra. That's a good story.
Well, that's an excellent story. Yeah.
That was good fun, and that was good fun. I think the tone of the book is quite. It's funny. It's a funny book, and I don't take myself remotely seriously, but I take the work very seriously.
Right.
That's kind of the vibe.
Well, tell me about when you did the video for Frank Sinatra. I'm a big Sinatra fan. I actually saw him in concert like 5 times, and I was a big fan because he had an incredible band behind him in concert. One of the best bands I've ever seen. How was it working with Frank Sinatra?
It was an extraordinary experience, quite extraordinary. We filmed him in a bar in Palm Springs because it took a while to get access to him. And this was for the duet. They did a duet, an album of duets, one of which was one with Bono, I've Got You Under My Skin. And all we did was, he didn't really sing. We set up a situation in the bar. We filled the bar with lots of hidden lipstick cameras, as they're called, because they're very small. And we hid them behind palm trees and behind pillars and bottles. And essentially, we just wanted to capture Frank arriving. And then Bono arriving, and Bono giving Frank a rare bottle of Irish Scotch. And that was it. And everything else we kind of build around that. But unfortunately, when he arrived, first thing he did was pull the bar stool that we'd ever so carefully placed in shot a foot to one side and sat down, which meant he got an elbow on top of his head, bottle of Scotch, and 15 cameras worth of shit. Because he wasn't actually in the picture. He'd moved the stool. So we had to start again, and he was getting a little tetchy because he's a one-take guy. But we eventually got it. So we had Frank and Bono talking at a bar in Palm Springs, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool, yeah.
It is. And that was kind of the hub of it. But then I had to fill it out. There's another 3 minutes to fill, because that actually takes about 30 seconds to complete. So it was really about manipulating archive footage of Frank, archive footage of Bono, and creating something that was as unique as the notion of the two of them singing together. What I ended up doing in the edit with all this material was, instead of having a traditional split screen technique, I put 2 TV monitors next to each other and filmed them handheld, which actually turned out rather well. I had no idea I was going to do that in the edit, but that was fun to do. And the end of it, the end of the whole process was kind of strange, because there was no internet those days. So we had to satellite the cuts, A to Bono, who was like in Australia or somewhere, and also to Sinatra's people. And Bono came back right away and thought he was brilliant, but we were waiting for days and days and days to hear back from Frank Sinatra's people. And the record company were giving us a hard time. Where's the cut? Where's the cut? We can't pay you. You're not delivering on time. So our producer ended up calling Frank's people, explaining the problem. And we got a phone call 10 minutes later saying that problem has gone away. Whatever that means.
With Frank Sinatra, you never know what that means.
I know, or whatever that implies. But eventually they came back to us. They said it was great, so it was wonderful. Well, the one that I remember was that after that episode in the bar, the 32nd episode in the bar, Frank left. He stormed out. He said, "These people are amateurs. I can't work with them."
Really?
Really. But we got a message back saying, "Come round to the house later for drinks," which we ended up doing. This is the compound, by the way. This is
right. I know where that is. Yep.
This is the place he extended and rebuilt to accommodate JFK.
Exactly.
Yeah. And wow, I mean, it was a piece of history. But we all went out for dinner. Together. And my wife and myself ended up sitting opposite Frank. It was sweet, very sweet. But at some point during the meal, we're in a Mexican restaurant, he popped a taco and looked up at my wife, Sue, and started singing Strangers in the Night, I said.
Oh.
Which was, it's like, oh, okay. So as you can tell, this is obviously quite a reasonable story to tell in a book.
Oh, it's a great story. And that's only one of many of your, like when you shot George and Paul and Ringo, the reunion show, musical that you did. You did a lot of stuff with them, yeah.
I mean, I've worked with Paul a few times, but getting to do something with the Beatles is a little bit awe-inspiring. Because, particularly if you're someone of my age and you grow up being influenced by these people, and what a huge influence they had. So you have to pinch yourself every now and again and think, oh, this is just a person I'm shooting, and I want him to do this, as opposed to shit, it's George Bleeding Harrison. Oh, it's Paul McCartney. It's
intimidating.
Yeah, it was crazy, but I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an interesting project, and I suppose the most embarrassing part of that project was when I was editing it. All we had to work with at the time was a very rough mix of Real Love, and it was a compromise mix because the vocal was very low. There were bits missing because they were scared of the track leaking before it was actually released officially. So it wasn't a very good thing to work with. So when I work, I like to be inspired by the material, but I couldn't hear it too well. So I took the rough mix into a sound studio and overdubbed my own vocal on it as a reference, so I could hear the lyrics and where it all sat. But
that was clever. Yeah.
That's actually out there in the ether somewhere.
Really?
The Beatles featuring Kevin Godley, which is kind of embarrassing.
Well, I heard that Real Love was actually recorded on the demo was on a handheld tape recorder that John did, right? Is that correct?
Well, it sounded a bit like that, yeah.
So, taking that from a handheld tape recorder, that was genius, because that was a fantastic video you did of Real Love. And you also did When We Was Fab, right? The George Harrison tune.
Yes, I mean that was a hoot as well. That was way back. That's a long time ago, but that was quite a challenging shoot to do for everybody involved. But it was great fun. Looking at it now, God, what we attempted to do was quite ambitious, and it looks a bit shitty in places, considering what you can do with modern technology. But I think the idea was quite fun. We had a great time doing it, I have to say. Again, it was the Christ, that's Ringo Starr walking past at both ends of the piano. So yeah, I mean, I think I've been incredibly lucky to have worked with some people who have been huge influences on my own work. So it's been a reciprocal life.
I want to tell the listening audience as well, Kevin Godley also directed, or was one of the directors on the Beatles Anthology DVD, which I thought was one of the best video of the Beatles ever, and the best story of the Beatles ever.
Thank you, but I had nothing to do with it whatsoever.
Oh, really? I thought your name was on there. I did. No, it's on the credits. It's on one of the credits that I looked up. Your name was on there.
Really?
Yeah, on the Anthology DVD.
I've obviously
somebody
lost
gave you credit.
Well, that's a nice credit for something I never did. Maybe they included Real Love in the program or something. I don't know. Maybe that's what you saw. Yeah,
it could be, but it listed a lot of the directors of the anthology, and you were one of them. So I'll send Billy the link just to show you. But yeah.
Oh, cool.
I've interviewed Julian Lennon. Julian's got his latest CD is Everything Changes, and he's got a music video out called Someday. And to me, that looks like a lot of your influence as well. It's actually a very, very good video. I don't know if you saw it or not.
I'll check it out.
It's excellent, and Julian's got a great album out there, very Beatles-ish, and Some days got Steven Tyler on the track as well. I've been helping Julian trying to promote that thing, and it's a great album. It just the radio market today won't play it, because they're too busy playing dance music. As an ex-DJ in radio, I was a top 40 DJ back in the late 70s, and I'm very disappointed with mainstream radio. I can't even. It's hard for me to even talk about it.
Yeah, I can feel the disgust in your voice. Yes.
There's so many great bands out there and so many great legends that should still be on the radio, and you guys are still cranking out the music, and it's just hard for you to get promoted, and that's why I do these kind of things.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's a different world out there now.
It is.
Christ knows what we'd do if we were kicking off now. If I was starting in the music business now, it would be a whole different ballgame. Some great things happening, but it's not easy for people to earn a living, which is kind of weird. But
yeah.
I guess we're in a sort of weird technological bubble at the moment. Something's got to change one way or another, or maybe it doesn't. But it seems to be changing every day, which is kind of exciting.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope it changes because, look at rap music. I played the first successful rap song on the air back in 1979, and that was Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang.
I remember
that was back in '79. So rap has been around a long time, and probably before that, it was probably just not as commercially well known, but it shows you how long it's been around,
I know, and it's huge. It's probably one of the most dominant music forces of the day. So, and it's more and more so over the years. It's quite extraordinary. It's amazing. I have to say, I was watching Glastonbury. I wasn't at Glastonbury, but I was always trying to catch up on the show on TV, and I was watching Kanye West, which I thought was quite interesting. I think he's a fascinating guy.
Right. I wanted to talk about too your Whole World Band, which brings music together with pictures, pretty much. It's an easy to use web-based app for iPhone and iPad and Windows and Mac OS computers, which allows musicians and fans to create personalized music videos that can be shared and enjoyed worldwide. I think this is amazing, and you can just go to your website, and I guess anybody can use that, right?
Anybody can use it, so long as they've got a device that has a camera in it and a microphone in it. It's very, very simple.
That's amazing.
I suppose for me, at this stage in my life, what's interesting is it combines the two things that I've spent most of my life doing, which is music and pictures. So the idea itself is just one of those. I had the idea originally. The idea originally came from a program I made for BBC Two back in. There's going to be a lot of barking going on here. Dogs have just spotted dogs, so just give me a moment.
That's all right. That's not the first time I've had dogs in an interview.
Oh, okay. Okay, so leads are being applied on both. And it's a very narrow road.
If you just joined us, we're talking to Kevin Godley and his dogs. His singing dogs over in Ireland.
I'm doing more talking than I am. We'll all pause very short.
Now they're barking at somebody.
Thank you. Come on, you two. Come on.
There must have been some other dogs in the area.
Yeah, the trouble is my dogs are only small, and when they come across the big ones, they feel threatened.
Oh yeah, they think they're all that, around big dogs.
Yeah, but they kind of act like Rottweilers, which doesn't really help. Come on, you maniacs! Oh, Jesus fucking Christ! And now I've got the beast in the tangle. Hang on, so this is gonna.
It's all right. We're all dog lovers here. So.
Oh, thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I am at the moment.
I interviewed Joe Lala, who passed away recently. Joe was with a couple of great bands, including Stephen Stills and Manassas.
Right.
He was, he just passed away recently. But one of my first interviews was with Joe, and he had his dogs. I went to his apartment, and he had his dogs out, and all during the interview, I was throwing them their bone, back and forth, back and forth. So this is nothing new to me.
So your show has a sort of built-in informality, which
yes, it does.
Is necessary. Okay. All right. So that whole crisis is past.
Okay. We were talking about WholeWorldBand.
Yeah. WholeWorldBand. Yeah. For me, it's terribly exciting. When's your show going out, incidentally?
My show is every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, since I'm not sure exactly when this one will run, but after the interview, I'll let you know.
Okay, fine. That's good. No, it's just that we're sort of under a press embargo at the moment. But if your show goes out once we're into October, which is very shortly,
okay.
I can tell you something about what we're doing. Do you know the Men's Health Foundation, Movember?
Right.
You know them?
Yeah, we also rebroadcast the show several times, so it's a good possibility that we'll be rebroadcasting.
Okay, it's just I can't tell you. I can't let any information out about what I'm about to tell you, and it can't go out until after the beginning of October. That's what I'm saying.
I got you. Okay. Well, we can always do an update. We can always come back to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I wanted to also talk about 10cc, since you're on the line.
Yeah, I haven't really finished talking about WholeWorldBand yet.
Okay, go ahead. Let's finish.
No, it's not just about you playing with your friends or your friends playing with you. It's also about the potential for people to play with some big names. That I think is the more commercial aspect of what we're trying to do. We've got some very interesting people on the app who you can actually play with. So what I'm hoping one day will happen is that the big people will play with the small people and be inspired by their audience as much as the audience is inspired by them. Whether that's a pipe dream, I have no idea, but that is my personal ambition. It is, in a sense, it's a world where anyone can plug into and play with anybody else from the comfort of their own iPad or laptop, and also to be seen to be doing so as opposed to just hearing it. I think that's very important. It's very important to all my work that there is a visual component. So that's it. Okay, now you can move on.
I think the music industry needs that. If some of these guys, like you said, the big people, would help some of the up and coming bands that aren't getting any press or anything, that would be huge for all the genres. Because they really need some direction.
It's also for me the fact that I don't know, audiences are spoiled to death these days.
Right.
There is no rarity. There is so much going on. We're almost living in a period of more is less, as opposed to less is more, which is where we all started. And I don't know. It's all about consumption. It's all about gimme. Let me listen to this. Nah, I'm not sure about that. I'll press a button and hear a bit of something else. Nah, I'm not sure about that. Whereas what we're trying to do is, I hope what we're trying to do, and I hope we'll achieve it, is to get people to actually be involved in the creative process and actually do something. Because essentially that's what YouTube is. It's people doing stuff. We just want to direct some of that talent towards what we do. Exactly.
On YouTube, anybody can be a star,
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
I know. We live in an extraordinary world, do we not?
I tell you the truth. I'm for the old ways, of course, but I do love YouTube. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, there are whole albums on there. You don't even have to buy anything anymore because people are putting the whole albums on there.
I know, and I can go to their show on there, and I can, I'm bored with that. Who else is there? around. Okay, I'm bored with them. But the thing is, music is competing with so many other methods of stimulation. When I was younger, it was like the latest record by your favorite artist was worth queuing outside the local record store for.
Exactly.
And spending all night listening to it. It doesn't quite work like that anymore because there are video games, there's the internet, there's this, there's that, and the other. There's a million ways to go to entertain yourself, and music is just one of them now.
Exactly. I agree with you. Yeah, it's a different world out there, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's right. The big problem is supply has far outstripped demand. I think that's the main problem.
Okay, going to talk about 10cc. You know, I always thought that 10cc had the potential to become a super group at one time. I mean, you know, I was in high school when "I'm Not in Love" came out, and that was a huge song. I mean, it was played over and over again on Top 40 radio. Why did I know you kind of split up, you know, with and to do your own thing, but why did you guys have that sense that you were really on to something big there? And maybe you should
it was time. I mean, God knows why all bands split up. Everybody splits up for different reasons. But, But for me and Godley Creme, it was we'd invented something even before 10cc existed. We'd invented a music device called a gizmo, which was a mechanical device for vibrating the strings of a guitar to make it sound like an orchestra. That's the theory anyway. And prior to the band forming, we didn't really spend too much time playing with it. But towards the end of the band, we kind of took 3 weeks out to see what this thing could do. And we went into Strawberry Studios and messed around for 3 weeks. And we had such a great time doing it. It was liberating. That we felt that to go back to 10cc to make yet another album and do yet another tour and write even more songs was kind of predictable. And things shifted from that point. Unfortunately, we weren't mature enough as individuals to say, okay, we've grown up now, we've been working together for a number of years, we need a break from each other. Well, let us go and do this project, and then we'll come back and reform. We weren't smart enough to do that, unfortunately. It was all or nothing, which is a very north of England attitude. So we split up because we didn't really have any choice. We didn't want to split the band up, but we so wanted to do this project. So it's an unfortunate thing. I mean, I think you're right. Had we have gone on, we may have become a big group, but
I think so.
Who knows? But we were getting. It's an interesting thing when you make music. I don't know if other people feel the same, but when you start making music, I think inevitably you kind of copy your musical heroes. But there comes a point in your evolution as musicians and recording artists where something happens and you become who you really are. That can happen by accident, or it can happen because of pressure or whatever. And I think we'd gone beyond that point, and we were at a point where we knew exactly what 10cc was and what was expected of us. And that, at least for me and Godley Creme, was kind of an uncomfortable place to be, because it's like, okay. And I remember having a meeting before. We sat down for a pre-production meeting before beginning the album that we never made, which was, I think this was before the How Dare You album, and it went something like this. Well, we need a romantic one, we need a long and complicated song, we need a few funny ones. We were actually trying to figure out the component parts that made us successful and duplicate them, which that's not easy to do. And I didn't feel very comfortable doing that. I mean, everything we'd done so far was really, I was going into a studio for maybe 3 months, and what came out at the end was kind of that album. And it was kind of an exploratory process, and But the key to it was not knowing what you were going to come out with at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it would be surprising and it would be exciting. But if you go in knowing what you're aiming for, then it's kind of... Didn't like that.
Right.
At all.
Right.
So we bailed, essentially, for better or worse. And, yeah, we probably missed out on the big time.
Mm-hmm.
But we may never have got into music video and done well in that area. So it's one of life's mysteries, I guess. Yeah. We'll never know what happened if we stayed together. But you know, in hindsight, I don't think it was a bad thing to do.
It was a great band. You know, you did some innovative stuff, you know, creative things, and yet you made it to the mainstream on Top 40 radio. Was very, very successful with those songs.
Yeah.
I'm Not in Love. I mean, you did some. You know, you were responsible, right, for coming up with that the backing track, the voices, right? Because originally, I guess it was supposed to be a bossa nova or something like that, and you guys said it was crap.
It was really cheesy. It was horrible. It was like, I'm not in love. It was lounge. You know, it was bad lounge.
Right.
I don't know. It was one of those we kind of put to one side and carried on making the album, but we kept coming back to it because there was something there.
Right.
So, you know, because the way we worked was relatively democratic, anyone could come up with an idea. I said, okay, well, and this was probably more out of desperation than anything else. Why don't we ditch all the instrumentation and just layer up an enormous wash of vocals? Let's do this vocally. And that's exactly what we did. It took a long time to do, but it's exactly what we did.
It's a great concept.
Yeah, but that may be a great concept, but didn't necessarily mean it would work.
Right.
And back then, of course, the whole methodology was completely and utterly different. Today, you'd find a vocal sample and do it on a keyboard, but we had to create this sound from the ground up, which was so we didn't really know whether it was going to work or not. And it took quite a while to make the sound happen. But once it came together, anything we added at that point worked. So it was one of those ideas that work. 10 of them don't. If you're lucky, maybe 2 of them do. And that was the one out of the 2 that was a spectacular success, audio-wise. And actually, in a way, the fact that it was so analog and was so physical in terms of creating the sound was part of the fun of recording back then.
Yep.
You know, it was such a different process to create a sound that was buzzing around your head. How do you make that? Well, you don't go to a computer and bring up a sample. You actually have to figure out a way of making the noise in the first place. And that was a book. That was exciting.
I think those are the greatest, songs in history. Are the ones that were made that way. You know, not like you said, not through electronics or computer or kind of. Let's try to put this together. You know, that kind of thing. You know, like Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon was kind of made that way. You know.
Exactly. But the interesting thing is, in comparison to the way one records now, back then there was room for interesting accidents to happen.
Accidents are a good thing.
I mean, the part of the sound of that particular track was because the vocal sound was so intense with every note that existed pretty much. There was a lot of spill between tracks, so we could never create a pure chord. There was always an atonal sound of everything going on at the same time, subtly but underneath. So it had that kind of strange atonal quality going alongside the musical quality, which really shouldn't have been there, but we could get rid of it. But it was part of the mood of the whole thing because it was an accident. Yeah.
They try to make things too perfect today, and it's overproduced, you know, and it to me doesn't sound right.
But you know what? You know, one thing that I found that may sound ridiculous, it may sound ridiculous, is the fact that, and I found this more in editing video than in making music, but it's the same either way. because everything is non-linear now, and because you have the facility to be able to try something in 15 different places, you can elongate it, you can contract it, you can stretch it, you can warp it, you can retune it, you can do an infinitesimal amount of things with this thing. So, so you do, essentially. So if I'm in an edit and I try a shot here, and I say, okay, that works quite well, but I want to try it here as well, that's not bad either. Let's use a few more frames and try it there instead. And before you know it, a day's gone by because you can try everything.
Right.
Back in the day, it was like you had to use your brain a little bit more and make a decision.
Right.
Today you can defer making decisions, which is fine for the edit suites and recording studios because it brings the dollars rolling in, but it prevents you from having a viewpoint or a definitive viewpoint.
The other thing about I'm Not in Love, when I was in high school, there was a mystery behind that song because of the Be Quiet, the Big Boys Don't Cry, you know, and a lot of people always had that and misinterpreted what it was actually saying. But there was always kind of a mystery behind that track, which is pretty cool.
So you have to say that again. We're having a dog moment again.
Now that was the Be Quiet, Big Boys Don't Cry. That was actually your receptionist in the band. Was it Kathy Redfern actually saying those words? Okay. Yeah,
she was a receptionist at Strawberry Studios. We wanted the female voice to say those words. God knows why. Again, it was a little experiment. She was there, so she came in and said them. That's it. No big mystery.
Because nobody ever asked the question. Who they thought it was somebody in the band. Actually, I guess.
Oh no, I don't remember any women in the band. Do you? It was four of us. No, none of us were women. At least not on stage.
Well, some people probably back then they were just assuming that it was I don't know, maybe a studio musician or somebody.
Oh no, it was our studio secretary.
Yeah. Yeah. One great songs by 10cc. All making the mainstream back then, which is very difficult to do, especially with that kind of a band, because you guys are, very pioneering, and so I think 10cc probably would have gone on to some big things. I know the band tried to get together a couple of times, right? Back together again?
Never the original lineup. Graham Gouldman.
Never the original lineup. Okay.
Never the original lineup. Graham Gouldman takes his version of the band out, which is himself plus a few people from Mark II of the band. And I've actually sat in with them a few times, but no, the original foursome, the original quartet never got back together. If they did, if they did on stage, it should be in a boxing ring.
Oh no, one of those stories, huh? That's in the book.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, it was only, it's interesting. I mean, just going back to the book, one of the things I find quite extraordinary, people always want to talk about 10cc, but in terms of my work life, it's only 4 years. But it obviously had a considerable impact, and everything sort of spread out from there. But yeah, it's only 4 years in my life.
Yeah. You made a very interesting album when you left 10cc called Consequences.
Yeah.
Which was basically it was a concept album, and you had some interesting people on that. I guess the story was it's a story of a man's last defense against an irate nature. Is that the story of it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was a proper story. It was. I suppose that the idea behind it was that music can have power over nature, which sounds horribly. That sounds horribly pretentious now, but and to an extent, the story kind of made itself up as it went along. The Consequences project, it's like it's one of those things people either absolutely adore or utterly despise because of the nature of the beast. It was a concept album and all the grandeur and bullshit that goes along with that at a time when concept album was the least hit thing possible. which we suffered from. It came out just after New Wave and Punk had exploded. And, any song longer than 3 minutes and any hair longer than 3 inches didn't stand a chance. And, you know what I mean? So it's like, and I had a great time doing it. It took about 18 months to do. But we had a lot of fun doing it. But essentially it was the project we started with the Gizmo over 3 weeks back in Strawberry Studios that kind of blew up out of all proportion. And part of it was our own egos, and part of it was the record label trying to turn it into something that they felt would be commercial.
Right.
Hence the introduction of Peter Cook and Sarah Vaughan. They were trying to turn it. Maybe they were trying to turn it into something it was never intended to be, but maybe we were trying to do that as well. But we kind of. I think my problem with the project is that after a certain time, it was about the tail wagging the dog. And it wasn't something we could stop. We had to take it to its conclusion. And I don't think it was. Creatively, to me, it didn't turn out the way I hoped it would. But there are some interesting things on it.
Yes, there is. I kind of felt that way. I think when Jethro Tull came out with Passion Play, it was one of those albums you loved it or you hated it, you know. But it was very experimental, and you know, it's.
Yeah, I kind of love to hate it, and I hate to love it. It's
right.
It's a bit of a dog's dinner in that respect, but there are some extraordinary moments on it. It's just
exactly.
Had we have had the foresight to hone it into an album that had all the extraordinary moments, instead of 2 extra albums of sort of waffle, it might have had more of an impact. But it got remembered for the worst aspects of it, for the best aspects of it, which is really a shame.
I think, it might have been the timing, like you said, because back then, I think it was released in 77 or 78, somewhere around there, and New wave hit, disco was coming out, and it was a kind of a weird time, you know. Everything had changed. Everything had totally changed.
But we were in this mad bubble and locked in a recording studio. It's like being a soldier lost in the forest till the end of World War II and emerging into this world that is completely different. It was a bit like that. It was nuts. And we got it wrong. Essentially, we didn't watch our own back. We didn't keep an eye on what was really going on out there, which I think is a bad thing.
Right. Okay, Kevin, here's a question that I ask everybody that I interview, and I get some very interesting answers, okay?
Okay.
If you had a Field of Dreams wish, like the movie Field of Dreams, to perform, to collaborate with anyone from the past or present, and they could be passed on, you know, they could be gone, who would that be?
Bloody hell.
Because you worked with a lot of people already.
I know. I guess there are a few people who I'd have loved to. I'd love to have worked with Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye. I'm not so sure which capacity, a musical capacity or a video capacity, but
either way.
Either way, a bit of each maybe. Wow, that's unfair. That question. That's too big because I did get to work. I guess I suppose I would have liked to have worked with John Lennon because he was the missing component from the Beatles that I worked with. So that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's leave it at that for the moment.
Okay, John Lennon, Marvin Gaye.
That's reasonable, I think, isn't it?
I think so. I get some great answers, you know, so things that you would never expect from people, you know, that are totally off the wall, which is neat. So.
What's the weirdest?
Gosh, let me think. Well, Robin Trower said James Brown, and I never thought, I would have thought a blues guy, but you know, he's into that R&B stuff. You know, it's in his it's hidden in his music. I mean, I've gotten anywhere from I forgot somebody told me Petula Clark, and it was not somebody you would expect.
Wow.
I've actually interviewed Petula Clark too, but yeah, things like that. You think people that you would never think that, like the heavy rockers would go for somebody that's totally out of content. That's why I came up with the question. I think it's interesting to find out who their favorite people are.
Please tell me it wasn't Lou Reed who wanted to work with Petula Clark.
Well, it was somebody like that.
Really? Oh my God!
Yeah, somebody like that. I can't remember now. I'd have to look up all my answers. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But of course, a lot of people say the Beatles. It's always either George or John or Paul McCartney. Nobody ever says Ringo. Nobody ever wants to.
I'd love to work with Ringo because he's actually one of the best drummers that ever existed because he's a musical drummer. What he does complements everything else. And he found, if you think of some of the drum fills he did, no one has ever done anything like that before. He's hugely influential drummer.
Yeah.
And a great timekeeper. So yeah, I'd love to work with Ringo on something.
I admire him. I cover his All-Star shows when they come over here to Florida, and it's amazing the shape he's in. I can't believe how good of he takes care of himself. He's running all over the stage, and it's in great shape.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, well, we're all getting on a bit, so I need to do a bit of that. I need to get in shape. I'm not sure what for, but for something.
Kevin, do you have children out there? Do they have music ability? Are they in music? Anybody in music? Any of your children?
No, I don't have any children, but my dogs are quite good on saxophone.
Oh, they're good on saxophone.
Yeah.
We know they have good singing voices.
One can play good alto and the other does interesting harpsichord. But no, I don't have any children.
Right. But I'm sure now how many dogs do you have? I couldn't tell when they were barking.
Oh, well, it probably sounded about 10, but 2.
It's only 2.
2 dogs. Only 2. Well, you probably got an echo as well. But yeah, 2 dogs. 2 dogs.
Only 2.
Very sweet. Only
Kevin,
2.
anything else you like to promote? Besides, we're going to promote the book. Anything else you got coming up?
Yeah, I've just finished a very interesting project.
Okay.
It's called Hog Fever.
Hog Fever.
Hog Fever, I suppose, is more akin to an audio book than anything else.
Right.
But we call it an ear movie, much as we call Consequences an ear movie. What Hog Fever is essentially, it's like watching a film without the pictures. It has dialogue, it has the action, and it has the sound design of a movie. And it will be out as a podcast, and it will be out as a series of CDs released by a company called Blackstone Audio. And it is the story, it's the story of a middle-aged biker and Harley-Davidson fanatic who wants to be a screenwriter, and his wife, who is a screenwriter, steals his idea for a movie. And it essentially takes place over a number of consultations with a shrink played by Terence Stamp.
Oh, okay.
And I'm acting in it as well as directing it and doing some of the music and the sound design. So for me, it was a huge challenge. Yeah, I wrote the thing, co-wrote the thing, designed the sound, acting in it, and directed it. So it's a biggie for me.
That's big. That's huge.
Yeah, that is huge. And I'm knackered. What can I say? We only finished it recently, but it's a project that we've been working on for a long, long time, and it's called.
Now, when is this going to be out?
It should be out. It should be out in October.
October. Okay. Okay.
So yeah, and it's got some interesting. It's got an album, a free album of songs with it as well, from the ear movie. But basically, it's a play. Is what it is. And it's
Any
called
chance? You think there's a chance of you taking it on the road? Possibly.
I never even thought of that. I doubt it very much because you mean as a play?
Yeah, a screenplay or play, just a regular play.
That's a very interesting idea. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that idea. I guess if it does anything, if people like it, we may consider that. But the thought that never even occurred to me. What an interesting idea.
Well, I know a few people that are kind of doing that now.
Really?
Corky Lang. You remember Corky Lang, the drummer from Mountain?
Yeah.
He's a friend of mine, and he's got a play out there that is about the human genetics. It's called Playing God, and it's kind of like a Rocky Horror Show type of setup, that kind of thing. And he's actually got it on the road now, but it's it's taking a while, but it's starting to catch on. So there's a lot of these things going on now.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and he plays him. He also is in the play as an actor, so you could do the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
I could see you getting more into the motion picture thing now with your music and everything that you're doing, and maybe that's a good direction.
Well, interestingly, Hog Fever was originally a screenplay for just that. We wanted it to be a film.
Right.
But it was too wacky as a film. At the time we were shopping it around, everyone was saying, yeah, it's really interesting, but...
Right.
No. And so it kind of just lay there for a few years until Richard LaPlante, who's the author, came up with the idea of doing it like this, which essentially was great because it meant we weren't dependent on anybody else. We could make this come into being any way we saw fit, which is what we did. But yeah, I mean, obviously, as a director, it would be interesting to do a movie. And I'd like to do a movie of something that I've written, not just be hired as a director. So that may happen. It might not. But I always, I guess, look for ways that I can combine music and pictures. And I guess in this project, I managed to do that. The interesting thing about this project is, for the first time ever in my composing life, I've written a few songs on my own. I've never done that before.
How about that?
Because I only play drums. I don't play keyboards or guitar or anything. So I've always been dependent on somebody else providing chords for me to wobble against. But I found a way into the process. This project that was kind of different. So I'm kind of pleased with how that came out. There's maybe 3 or 4 songs on there that are just Kevin Godley compositions that I'm performing, which is interesting.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we circle back when it comes out, and then I'll have you back on the show again so we can talk about it.
That would be absolutely brilliant. That would be absolutely brilliant.
We can do a proper promoting of it and really get into it. Yeah.
That'd be superb.
Okay,
of course.
We'll get you back on the show again once it's out. So
if you like it. Okay, well, if you've got to like it first before you want to promote it, right?
Well, yeah, I'm sure I will.
Good. Well, you may think it's a piece of shit, so hope you don't.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Kevin, I want to thank you so much for being on the call today, and more importantly, for all the incredible music you've given us with 10cc, Godley Creme, and your brilliant music videos and your ingenuity with WholeWorldBand. And I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it immensely. It seemed very free of restrictions and very informal, which is where I function best.
Me too. And it's a pleasure to have your dogs on as well.
I'll transmit that to them. It was a pleasure to have you on as well. Oh, they've gone to sleep. They've gone to sleep. What can I say?
Thank you, Kevin. We'll circle around once it's released, your project's released, and we'll talk.
All right, man. All right. Very good to talk to you.
Good talking to you, too. Be sure to purchase SPACECAKE, Kevin Godley's first book, which takes you on an incredible interactive tour of his life via pictures, music, film clips, and 27 chapters of abstract insight into how everything from the first hits to WholeWorldBand, his music video collaboration app, got made. It's dark in some of the corners, though, so make sure you bring a torch. Available to purchase on iBooks. Also, visit www.WholeWorldBand.com. WholeWorldBand is an easy-to-use web-based app for iPhone and iPad and Windows and Mac OS computers, which allows musicians and fans to create personalized music videos that can be shared and enjoyed worldwide. Join me every Monday on the Ray Shasho Show. Coming up October 5th, legendary lead guitarist of Jethro Tull, Martin Barr, will be our guest on the Ray Shasho Show. Very, very special thanks to the great Billy James of Glass Onion PR for arranging our interview with Kevin Godley today. If you have comments or suggestions or would like to be a guest on the Ray Shasho Show, call 941-877-1552 or email us at ray@publicityworksagency.com. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming to the show today, and have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Ray Shasho Show, brought to you by the Publicity Works Agency. Call 941-877-1552 or visit us at publicityworksagency.com, specializing in author and music artist publicity plans. We shine when we make you shine. Join Ray Shasho every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on BBS Radio, Station 1.